are you doing in here?
Hey everybody, we're the PixelBlips podcast, and we're back in the office for August 4th, 2013. I'm Andy Ryan. I pushed continue. Joining me as always is the bobble to my bubble, Dave DeWart. I'd like to apologize for our last couple episodes. I've been in a bit of a crisis, and my health hasn't been good. But we're back, so don't worry about it now. So we'll get back to brass tacks, which means, Dave, what have you been playing this week?
Well, I was on vacation last week, actually.
Vacay.
Yeah, which doesn't really mean that I spent a lot of time playing video games. I was with my wife, so we were just kind of hanging out, doing couple stuff, things like that. I did sneak a little bit of time in. I finished Hotline Miami.
Now, when you say finished Hotline Miami, spoilers, huge spoilers. Do you mean you finished the first campaign or the second campaign?
I played through as the guy in the suit, and then you play through as the guy in the motorcycle.
Second campaign.
Yeah, for like 5 levels or something like that.
I haven't beaten that. Did you play through the Vita?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so the thing I don't like about the motorcycle helmet guy is that I can't get it. Since he only has 3 darts, like it kind of wastes the lock on.
A little bit, yeah, it does.
Yeah. For me, it felt like, I don't know. That's where I stopped.
And so I played through it. I was just like, all right, screw it. And then I basically said screw it, and I just started running through doors, just hacking up guys. Like, you don't stop moving, just keep killing. And that's the whole point of that guy, I think. And occasionally you do have to like peek through a door, throw a knife at a guy, and then duck back out, or peek through the door and then kite him into the room and then take him out.
Yeah, see, my thing was always I'd stand on top of like 3 different shotguns and then grab a double barrel shotgun and then blow open a door and then shoot the shotgun into the wall so people heard it. And then as they ran through the open door,
you just shotgun, throw, shotgun, shotgun, throw. Yeah, no, I did that a little bit, like when I had to. The hardest part for me was there's a sequence where you're actually in like the police station, and you can't stealth kill the big guys, because there's like these big dudes in black suits, and then later on they're just manifested in a different way as like the police chiefs who are in these big brown suits. You can't take them out with like a baseball bat or a pipe or something like that, and that kind of always sucked because you have to shoot, you have to use a gun, and then it alerts everybody to where you are. Yeah. So then it's a frantic, okay, got to take these guys out, and they're going to hide, and they're going to take these guys out. Like I said,
that's where I developed the shooting a double barrel shotgun into a random wall, so people are like, oh, there's gunfire, I'm going to go see what that is.
I think when I finally cleared that, I actually got an A on that. Like I got it ranks you A to F or something like that, plus your score.
Ranks. So I think it's S to F, maybe.
Anyway, I got an A rank on a level, and it was like, wow, that was a really hard level. And it was because I had done it so many times, I had basically just done, all right, take this, made this little circle.
You got the math down.
Well, and I got my little Madden thing going on, so I had the circles and the arrows and the X's and the circles and the arrows.
I'm just sitting here thinking of like the music in that game. So what else have you been playing?
I also picked up Prison Architect, which I only played for a couple hours, and it wasn't. It's still in like I think an alpha or beta stage, so it's not quite done, but it's pretty neat. You have to like learn how to lay out a prison, and you have to have like a bare minimum of you have to have a holding cell, you have to have like a kitchen and a cafeteria and a warden's office, and you only have so much money to start with. It's like SimCity with prisoners. It's kind of neat. I think I bought it for like $18 on Steam. Yeah, and that was when it was on sale.
Steam, the blur of the Steam sale.
Yeah, I bought a whole bunch of stuff for like $3 and less, so that I haven't touched, like Evoland and Dust and Elysian Tale and things like that. So what have you been playing the last few weeks?
So I think we've gone over like how I play video games in the terms of I'll start one, I'll play it for a bit, then it kind of goes on the back burner, I kind of bounce back and forth through it, especially with RPGs and stuff like that.
You have to stop with an RPG every now and then.
Yeah. So the consequence of that is occasionally I'll get to a point where like the planets align.
Yeah, there you go.
The planets align, and I end up beating games like in mass, just because I've gotten like 80% of a way through a game.
And you're just all right,
I go to the
knock
one I
out
was
this
also
20%,
playing.
knock out this 30%.
So I ended up beating War in the North, Lord of the Rings War in the North, which that ending kind of let me down. After enjoying like the deep level of Tolkien lore that they went into, how that game ends, I was kind of left feeling pretty hollow. Like
it's just like
if I were writing that fan fiction for that game, I would have rewrote the ending differently.
Now,
I don't want to spoil anything.
Does it end in like a cliffhanger where it's like there might be a sequel?
It doesn't end in a cliffhanger.
So it's very final. It's just not very substantial.
Yeah, it does that thing where the ending is the victory is attributed to some other party, not to your people.
Aww.
Which a lot of games do, especially in movie tie-in games. They're like, oh, like if it were the game of The Rock, which is always the movie I think of, it would be like, you're that SWAT team, that SEAL team squad, and then like, oh, you didn't actually take out the bad guys. Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage did.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that keeps in line with the story in the movie and stuff, but like,
doesn't break canon, but it's
but
at
the same time, it's like,
but I did my part.
Yeah, after playing the game, you want to have more of ownership of the victory.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you know anything about Tolkien, you can kind of fill in the blanks to what I'm alluding to.
But did it have like 30 minutes of ending, like the last Lord of the Rings movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the things I enjoy about the last Lord of the Rings movie. Everyone complains about Return of the King. It's 30 minutes. It ended 18 times. If you read the book, you know that ending could have been much longer.
Oh, it could have been. It's like, what, 4 chapters or something in the book?
Well, yeah, and there's this thing called the Scourging of the Shire, which they didn't touch on at all.
Yeah.
That they totally cut out of the movies, which I think the movies are better for as movies, but that the Scourging of the Shire in the books has a meaning that is lost. Anyway, that gets into stuff that now that's for another podcast. So I beat that game. I beat Saints Row the Third.
Oh, good.
The ending to that game is the best ending I've ever seen.
It's a goofy game beginning to end, right?
Yeah. I almost want to spoil the ending right now, but I don't.
The game's been out for a while and it's free on Plus. So.
But the War in the North game has also been out for a while. I don't want to spoil that ending. And I know if I were watching this podcast and someone spoiled something for me, I'd be upset.
I mean, I beat Last of Us, and that is a great. So I
get to borrow it now?
Yeah, I forgot to bring it. I'll bring it next week.
Next week.
I might try the multiplayer out this week.
Yeah, but Saints Row the Third, like the things I liked about the ending were that it just went. The thing I don't like about Saints Row the Third is the kind of misogynistic, like, it's knowing anti-feminism. Mm-hmm. Like they're like, oh, this is all done as a joke.
They're making fun of it the whole time.
Yeah, they're making fun of like really explicit content stuff and everything, and that joke is good. But in the framework of how often that joke comes up in the game and the dialogue and everything, it wears on me.
Yeah, a little bit.
But they focus for the ending. They don't focus on the over-the-top sexism stuff. They focus on just the over-the-top bullcrap stuff. And it's that makes it, that like cements that game in my mind of like, that the ending focuses on what's good in the game. And the fact that they found a way to loop holding out for a hero, like through the first part of that ending, like it got me oddly pumped in a very humorous way.
Yeah, I mean, and you know the way that Saints Row 4 is looking to be, even though like you're the president and like 3/4 of the game is in this goofy over the top world, that seems to be the part that everybody is going to care about. Yeah. Like Saints Row 3
the ending of
continued.
The ending of Saints Row 3 made me want to go back and play Saints Row 2, because the first Saints Row I didn't like because it was so. This is Grand Theft Auto on the cheap.
That's kind of what sense. That's what I've heard about.
They were like they wanted it to be serious and cool and everything, and that game might have changed the more you got into it. It might have eventually gotten crazy, but the parts I played of it, it was so rooted in gangster culture, and they didn't really not hit the over the top stuff. And I kind of, because of that, I skipped Saints Row 2 when it was free on Plus. Now I want to go back and play
and pick it up.
So what else did I beat? I'm trying to think. I beat one other game and I can't think of it. I'm sure if I went back and clicked on my my recently played queue, it would be like, oh yeah, I did beat that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been beating a lot of games. Haven't really played much else outside of that. I played a lot of Metal Slug XX.
Yeah, I played a little bit of that.
Because I love Metal Slug.
I think if I was paying quarters, I would have dropped about $8 into it already, and I'm not that good at it. Like, I've never been good at a Contra-esque bullet hell type game, and this is that to the nth degree. It's the silliest stuff. Yes. But it's neat. It's a fun little PSP game that they gave out for free on Plus.
Yes.
So
I just remember the third game I beat. I beat Binary Domain.
Oh, okay.
And the ending to that game also cements it as. Sometimes they just know what they got right, and they keep focusing on it.
And they just focus on that. That's cool, though.
And it was like, it so reminded me of like the end of Metal Gear Solid and the end of every 90s action movie. Whereas like Blood Dragon's kind of making fun of that straight-to-video 80s vibe. Like, I think we all remember, like, the endings to, like, things like Under Siege and that one with Van Damme at the hockey game and the ending of, like, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Van Damme at the hockey game.
It was on the other day. Or the ending with Van Damme and Van Damme where they play, I think it was called Double Trouble or something. Or, like, Double Dragons. Double Dragon was a different movie.
Yeah.
Anyway. So the ending of Binary Domain cements it as, like, you almost, there is actually a shot of the American flag, like, waving. I think it's the American flag. It might be the Japanese flag. Waving as, like, music slowly plays.
Okay.
Like, and there's a shot at the end of it where, like, your main character is, like everyone thinks, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but everyone thinks your main character is, like, one of the main characters has gone, like, super renegade and everything, and they're all alone against insurmountable odds, and then your main character shows up to save that other character, and he's like, I was always with you. Yeah.
Just kicks down a door, shows up.
Well, like in one of the he literally like jumps on top of a burning truck with a Gatling gun and starts blowing people away.
Oh, okay, well.
I was like, this is so much what this game is.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
So now we're down to what we want to discuss this week. And last weekend, Phil Fish, designer of Fez, and one of the subjects of Indie Game the Movie, and a very outspoken individual on Twitter.
Yeah.
I follow his Twitter. I don't always agree with what he says, but I do like it. Got into a Twitter battle.
With everybody,
I almost want to include that clip from The Hobbit where the dwarf goes, "It's a thunder battle!" Like,
it's a Twitter battle.
Like, just get him and be like, "It's a Twitter battle!" Like, super epic sounding. With Marcus Beer from Game Trailers, who's also known as the Annoyed Gamer, who I also enjoy, but I don't always agree with. But I do have respect for him. And I have respect for Phil Fish as a creative, and I have respect for Marcus Beer as a, I don't want to say journalist, because that's not how I respect him. I respect him as an opinionated editorialist.
Okay.
I think editorialist is a word.
If it's not, it is now.
Kind of the same way I have respect for David Jaffe, both as a designer and as someone with opinions in the industry. I have respect for Jeff Gersman as someone who has opinions in the industry, but I have a lot of respect for Patrick Klepek as a journalist. Yeah. So it's kind of like the 31 flavors of respect.
For Andy and people in the games industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they got in a Twitter battle because Marcus Beer said some very unkind things about Phil Fish and Jonathan Blow, the designer of Braid, who I have more respect for Jonathan Blow because I feel like with Braid, like The Witness and all this stuff and how he acts in public, he doesn't commentate on things that much. He's kind of just like,
here's what I do, enjoy it or not, I'm not gonna...
I'm kind of an artist and I'm kind of, I don't want to get down into the flame battles and stuff. I want to kind of be above it and just kind of do what I do and create my art. Whereas I would say that the two artists I really respect, I would say that Jonathan Blow is more of a Picasso, where he wants to go off and do his own thing and be his own person, or a Rembrandt. I would say he's more of a Van Gogh. Hopefully he doesn't cut off his ear and kill himself. But whereas he just wants to create his art his way and be out of the focus of the public eye. Whereas Phil Fish, I would see as someone an artist that I really respect is Andy Warhol, because they want to do art, but they also want to commentate on the world of art through their art. And I think both of those artists, Van Gogh and Andy Warhol, are hugely important to art as we know it. I feel that Phil Fish and Jonathan Blow are hugely important to video games and how narrative is presented in those as we know it. So Marcus Beer wanted not Marcus Beer directly, but people wanted quotes about Microsoft's switch to self-publishing.
Oh, how they turned it off from you have to pay us X thousands of dollars and whatever.
You can go ahead and self-publish.
Yeah.
And you can set your own price points, and we're basically once again doing what Sony's doing, so it's an even playing field. And since this next generation indie game designers have kind of been the cannon fodder, I feel like for the console wars.
Yeah, because I mean that's where a lot of money came from out of this last one. Sony was making so much money off of all these little indie games that were good. And then when you look at
Xbox, but Xbox Live indie games got so much recognition for Fez, for Super Meat Boy,
but I mean,
for Braid.
when you look at what's in that thing, they're like the shining stars in this big pile of crap.
Diamonds in the rough are still diamonds.
Yeah.
But So for the next generation, Sony put those indie game designers up on stage.
Yeah, they had like 8 or 9 of them up there.
Yeah.
Something, because I remember them having...
The guys doing that Metal Slug looking game are the ones I'm paying attention to, because every time I see that game, it's just like, it screams my childhood.
The Metal Slug...
Contra looking mashup.
Yeah, it looks like, it's done by the guys that did Scott Pilgrim, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the same artist too, which I love his art.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So indie game designers have kind of been pushed to the forefront in this console war, and journalists of all levels of integrity are running to them to get quotes.
Yeah.
And Phil Fish basically said, I don't want to quote on it because I don't know it, so stop asking me. And then people kept asking him, and he started to get very annoyed on Twitter and very vocal. And Jonathan Blow was also like, I don't know what this is. Just leave me alone. I don't care. Marcus Beer thought that was an insult to journalists. And Marcus Beer comes from a PR background where, like, promoting games and stuff. And he felt that these indie game designers run to journalists when they want to pimp something, when they want to promote their game, when they want to promote Fez.
But when they're asked a question about something, they're like, I don't know, please leave me alone.
And that they're kind of like, they can't have it. His point was they couldn't have it both ways.
And that kind of makes sense, right? Like,
well,
but at the same time, you were entitled to not have an opinion or to not express an opinion on something.
Yes. As someone who works in a journalistic environment that has nothing to do with games, when everyone is allowed to say no comment.
Yeah.
No matter if the next day they're coming to you trying to get attention, they're all allowed to say no comment and don't berate them because of it.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked before about the triangle of hate, about how developers feel that publishers are screwing them and feel that fans are just ungrateful assholes, and then publishers feel that fans are just pirating games, and developers are just whiny little babies, and journalists are just this horrible thing that they can help you when you want to promote a game, but then they're like crawling up your butt all the other time, and it kind of brought that to a head because Marcus Beer said things that I will go on record as saying were very inappropriate and he should not have said. Okay. And the thing is he has this angry, annoyed gamer personality that people want him to say those things.
Yeah. And
my response to him is, well, if you're saying is that indie devs can't have it both ways. They can't promote their game one day and then not give you quotes the next day. Yeah. I'm going to say you can't have it both ways. You can't be a journalist that's covering things and be an editorialist that's a whole asshole.
This kind of trolly editorial guy. Yeah.
And that's always been my problem with Jim Sterling, who he says things I don't agree with, but I do pay attention to him because he is a voice that says things that need to be said, even though I don't always agree with him.
Yeah.
That you can't. There's a problem having these online personas. Like, the person you see here is I'm like this. This is kind of a heightened version of me. Like, I think
a little bit, yeah.
I think Dave can tell you, like, I'm not as crazy a Sony fanboy as I appear. Like,
no,
you only see me,
you kind of are. You really kind of are.
Like, you only see like a part of me, but like I'm not sitting up here, hopefully, saying screw Phil Fish. I don't want to say the words that. I don't want to say what Marcus Beer called him, but they were very offensive.
Yeah, well.
And very trolly and stupid, and you would get away with it on message boards, but not. You shouldn't get away with it in a professional arena.
No.
And Marcus Beer got called on it, and got called on it in a very big way, because Phil Fish said, "I'm done. I'm not doing Fez 2. If this is how everyone's going to act around me." And
to be fair, it wasn't just this one guy. I mean,
Phil Fish has put up with this.
He's been putting up with this for a long time.
Because he's a very opinionated person on Twitter, and he says things that are inflammatory.
So it's not just one guy that killed Fez 2. If you were really looking forward to Fez 2, I only played the demo version of Fez.
Marcus Beer was the straw that broke the camel's back, as we say.
He was the guy that pushed him over the limit.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember when Phil Fish said something about not liking the 3DS, and Destructoid ran a whole article on it. And he was like, I have a 3DS. I like it. There's just problems with it. Like, how can I not say there's problems with it?
And that's another thing with Twitter specifically is you can make a comment and you can use all 144 characters and they can take it way out of context because there's just not enough room to express an opinion and then back it up with reasons. You know, you can just say,
even,
I don't like the 3DS because of this, and then people just go, oh, well, you hate this,
like
or you hate the Vita.
Or maybe the person that wrote that article emailed Phil Fish and he was like, I'm not going to respond to you. It was a thing on Twitter. And then they're like, oh, well, he didn't respond, so clearly that's confirmation of what I thought this was.
He just hates Nintendo.
Which, once again, as a person that works in a journalism area that is not centered on games, we don't do that.
No, you have
because that is a really great way to get sued. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you're a professional website and you're a professional, I would say you get away with it a lot on Facebook. You get away with it a lot on blogs and on websites. You wouldn't get away with that stuff in print because print's dying. If you can find a newspaper to work for, you definitely wouldn't get away with it on TV news.
No,
like you would get sued and there would be major problems.
Yeah. Well,
and you wouldn't get away with what Marcus Beer said, and I don't feel anyone should be fired. Okay.
Maybe put on leave for a week?
Well, I don't feel you should get fired. However, I feel like the people in charge of game trailers need to reevaluate Marcus Beer's position within that
community.
Yeah. And say your only opinion. If you're going to do this, we are going to have you only be an editorialist. You won't be in charge of hiring. You won't be in charge of. There's a difference between editorial and an opinionated editorialist. Editorial looks at all the articles, looks at all the videos, make sure everything's okay, make sure everything's right, everything's up to standards, everything's up to code, that there's not something that's going to get you sued. An editorialist, however, is kind of a talk radio show host where they're kind of left to their own devices, left to do their own thing. Marcus Beer has both of those hats. I don't know if at the moment, I don't know if he wore both of his hats when this was happening. I know he wore both of those hats earlier this year. And if I were in charge of that, I would say, hey, dude, we need to move you over here because we can't have the appearance that this kind of vitriol and this downside stuff is going to affect our product.
Yeah. And having that negative
you don't
cloud hanging over their website, it may draw some people in and it may push a bunch of people away.
If Fez 2 eventually comes out, you don't want the guy that is attributed to killing Fez 2. You don't want Marcus Beer overseeing, not necessarily doing the review, but even overseeing the review's production.
Yeah.
You want him totally away from that.
Have somebody else edit and peer review that.
Well, and you don't even want him hiring the people that do that.
Yeah.
That's how crazy these kind of news organizations work. There are certain news organizations where people like Bill O'Reilly hold control over hiring and stuff. But if you guys remember when, I can't think of his name. Glenn Beck. Sorry. If you remember when Glenn Beck got removed from Fox News, they basically took out that show and everyone connected with it left because they didn't want anyone connected to it to then be seen as part of their other products.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want anything to do with them. And I don't want Marcus Beer to be fired. I think that the Annoyed Gamer show is fun. I think that what he brings to Invisible Walls is fun. I do, however, think that
his position
professionally, he should say, "Hey, I'm going to step down and not do this," or I'm going to do this other thing, and it comes into one of those conflict of interest things, like when Gerst originally got removed from GameSpot.
When he got fired from GameSpot for.
Yeah. Well, we know now that it was a bunch of other things and problems he was having within the building. But the outside appearance was he gave Kane and Lynch a bad score. Kane and Lynch was an advertiser. Yeah. They fired him because of that, even though it wasn't necessarily because of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there was a lot of stuff going on there that we later heard about and may not ever hear about because I think he still can't talk about a lot of that stuff. Well,
that was part of their thing going back to CBS is they talked about a lot of it. And I watched that show. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Now, so that's what I think about Marcus Beer. On the flip side, I think Phil Fish, as an artist, being able to create your art, you can't lock yourself in a room forever.
No. I mean, and maybe Phil's overreacting.
To use our analogy before, Andy Warhol was set up in New York. The factory was in New York, where all of the artist critics were happening. The critics would go to the factory and see what was going on. So he was out there. He was known. Van Gogh went. I'm just gonna say Van Gogh because I can't do the sound without getting really nauseous and wanting to gag. Van Gogh left Paris. Just was like, I'm just gonna move out to the country and paint frickin' sunflowers and crap like that. And he did that. And that's what he did, and that's what he did to get away from the critics. So if you want to be away from the critics, you kind of have to be off Twitter.
Or, yeah, I mean, he can't unplug from the internet. Well, he could unplug from the internet.
I mean, Jonathan Blow does a very good job of, like, keeping kind of under wraps. Like, he has a Twitter, but he doesn't update it. I mean, he updates it, but it's not, like,
it's not like hourly tweets. It's, random stuff.
And
whenever he feels like doing it.
I think the problem for all of us, every single one of us in this connected world going forward, is going to be understanding that the stuff we put out is not private anymore, and how it can affect our professional lives and how it can affect our social lives.
Yeah.
And I think I want Phil Fish to come back to game development. I want him to make Fez 2 or whatever great artistry he has in mind.
Yeah.
But I also want him to understand that part of that creation and part of putting yourself out there as a personality is this. You're gonna get blowback.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're always gonna get we don't get much.
I think Anita Sarkeesian does a really good job of it, of like disabling comments, disabling voting on her videos. Those disabling things do affect the publicity inside YouTube for her videos.
Yeah, they do. And we get some negative feedback too, and it's like usually it's well deserved. Like the last couple episodes, your audio sucks. We know.
But our audio did suck.
We know, and we're trying to do. We could have done anything to fix it, but we couldn't have figured it out.
More, but there was just not a lot of stuff. There were constraints both from equipment, from the environment we were in, and then from me personally, what I could physically do.
Yeah, but I mean, more to the point, Phil Fish can shut himself in a closet and work on Fez 2 forever.
Yeah.
Like he did with Fez, the original Fez. He worked on Fez forever by himself and with maybe one or two other people.
I think there was 2 other programmers.
Yeah.
At most.
So, he could do that and he can release Fez 2 and maybe there'll be a bunch of people who want to buy it. But
and maybe
saying Fez 2 is canceled really isn't going to help him when he does decide he wants to release it, I don't think.
If he decides, and if he doesn't want to do video game development anymore.
Yeah.
I understand that. If you're in this toxic environment, and I think any developer, I think we mentioned David Jaffe, Warren Spector. I mean, even going all the way back to like people from the olden days, of course, Warren Spector, but like Lord British has even talked about it, the kind of blowback. And sometimes you just don't want that as an artist. You just want to go off somewhere and create your really special thing. And the thing that you create and avoid, the Van Gogh paintings, I think are really special and important and very different from the things you create inside an environment.
Well, because when
Andy Warhol's Campbell soup paintings, those are a direct relation to like where he was at the time and what he was doing, and it's a comment on popular culture. It's a comment on this, comment on that, and that is way much more than a soup can. But just as special as Van Gogh's paintings in his private period and stuff like that.
Well,
or Rembrandt in his what was it, blue period? I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, right? Like when you're being commented on and when you're being critiqued and said, oh yeah, you're giving positive reinforcement for this and negative reinforcement for this, you'll just wind up doing what everybody else is doing because this guy's making the big next shooter, this totally guy's different. And it won't be what you wanted it to be. Yeah. What you want it to be is what you want it to be, and sometimes you do need to shut yourself away to do that. So if that's what he needs to do to make Fez 2 as awesome as possible, great. If he's never gonna make Fez 2, okay, cool.
If he just wants to be left alone, we're totally
cool with that. If he wants to become a hermit and come back in 10 years and throw out Fez 2.
Yeah, come back in 10 years and be like, Fez 2 is done. Like that would be really cool, actually. Like I would really respect him for doing that.
We don't hear anything out of Phil Fish for 10 years, and Fez 2 shows up.
I think the comment I want to make on this whole thing, to kind of wrap it up, is it's kind of appalling to me. It was appalling to me as this whole Twitter war was going on, because like I said, I follow Marcus Spear. I respect him for reasons. I follow Phil Fish. I respect him for reasons. So I was watching this whole thing kind of play out in real time, and my initial gut reaction was I was pretty appalled at Marcus Spear. And I was appalled that he felt like he could say those things. And because there's a difference, and when you talk in any office, you talk about all the time, there's a difference between criticizing, critiquing, and just flat out being mean.
Being a jerk.
And Marcus Spear was being a jerk.
Yeah.
And Phil Fish was also being a jerk, in retaliating and his retaliation of it. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to blame the person that threw the first punch.
Yeah.
And Marcus Beer threw that first punch.
Indeed.
Granted, Phil Fish continued the fight, and it kept building and building and building until they finally, Phil Fish walked away and Marcus Beer got in trouble. And there were times where Marcus Beer, I understood that he was trying to stop it and say, like, hey, you can come talk to me at PAX. And, like, you just told me to kill myself. Like, let's talk about this on camera. But at the same time, I can understand Phil Fish going, no, I don't want to do that. That's only going to get
It's only going to make
viewers.
it worse.
Yeah,
it's only going to make your day better.
Ratings. I don't want to help you. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, like, Phil Fish walked away from game development. I kind of feel it's an immature move. I don't want to say the word I was about to say, but it's a very immature move. Because it's kind of like, fine, I'm upset with this. I'm angry. I'm going to take my toys and leave. And
it's the best way to look at it.
The thing we want out of Phil Fish is commentary on the indie game scene, of course. But more importantly, we want great games.
Yeah.
Because Fez, I haven't gotten a chance to really dig into it to the level that you apparently need to appreciate it. But Fez has multiple layers and levels and everything.
There's all kinds of weird stuff in that game.
And has a meta-narrative about games and about being a person and an individual, stuff like this. And you want more of that, and we need more of that in this industry as opposed to 88 things that all look like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be adult about it. And if it's an adult decision to walk away from game development, and he's been thinking about this for a very long time, I fully support him. If it's a quick gut reaction decision,
not so much.
Not so much.
Well, I mean, I see his point, right? Like, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
If you can't take criticism on Twitter and Facebook and on your website and YouTube and whatever, maybe you shouldn't be putting stuff on the internet if you can't take it.
That's true. And this, once again, this digital age, whether that heat if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Yes. Whether that heat is warranted or not, whether it is. Whether you turn on the gas on the burner,
you're going to have people who don't like you for whatever reason anyway, right?
Yeah. Like whether that heat is because of you or not, if you can't stand that heat, by all means get out of the kitchen.
But I don't want to say Phil Fish is gone. I don't want to say that because I don't keep up with what he says on Twitter. I follow him on my account, but I also watch the show account too. So whatever.
If you guys are talking to anyone on Twitter, it's probably Dave.
If you're talking to me, if you're talking to the PixelBlips.
I would say like 90% of our YouTube comment responses come from me, so that's usually me. That's why it takes so long. But if you're on
Twitter, it's probably me.
It's probably Dave.
It's probably me.
Say hi to him.
Damn it, now I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to see Phil Fish gone. I don't keep up with Phil Fish's Twitter. I look at it and whatever. I don't play games because, this is the new Jaffe game, or this is the new Phil Fish game, whatever. I know you do.
I definitely played the new Jaffe game. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I play games that interest me, and so just because Jaffe has his name on it doesn't mean if you don't like Jaffe that you shouldn't play it. And just if Phil Fish ever makes a game that isn't his, like if he works for a team or works on a team.
If he made the next DuckTales game,
if he was lead on the new DuckTales game, it wouldn't matter to us. We'd still play it.
Yeah, or if he was lead on the new Call of Duty, I probably wouldn't play it, even though Phil Fish was the lead on it.
Because you don't like Call of Duty.
Yes.
Like if he worked on, let's say, the new Final Fantasy, which is highly unlikely, we would probably both at least check it out, even though the Final Fantasy 13 and all those games are kind of...
Final Fantasy 13. I haven't played 2. I haven't played 13 too, and I'm not going to play Lightning Returns anytime soon, but I do like Final Fantasy 13.
They're way different than what we expect.
I keep interrupting, I'm sorry.
I think... regardless of whose name is on the game, you should play. Like the God of War series. I couldn't tell you which one Jaffe made. I believe it was the first one. And then, Stig was on 2? 4?
No, Stig was on 3.
Yeah. I don't even know who made these games. So it doesn't matter, like if he wants to make games, great. If he wants to make games under a fake name, that'd be awesome. Because then you'd be getting the Phil Fish without the cloud hanging over his head of, this was made by Phil Fish.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe Fish just needs to take a break from making games and he can comment all he wants on stuff as long as he's willing to take the flack for it. But maybe he just does need a break from making games. Maybe he needs to, step away because he spent however many years making Fez And once it came out, all he got was trouble from Microsoft over patch issues. Would it cost, what, 10 grand or something? And then they took it away and they didn't bother to tell anybody. That was not cool on their end. So, you know, maybe he just needs to take a couple years off, do what Cliff Bleszinski was doing. Like, right, he stepped away, he took like 6 months, 8 months off, and now he's working on a new project somewhere.
So what do you think about Marcus Beer?
About what the angry video game nerd guy did?
Annoyed gamer.
Annoyed gamer?
Angry video game nerd is someone else.
It's a different guy. Okay. Exactly. See, I don't keep up with these guys like you do. I think from what I've heard from you, it sounds like he crossed the line that he shouldn't have crossed. And if he is in a position to affect other people's livelihoods, either through game reviews or editorial type things. Like editorial things, that's what blogs are for, right? Like if he's paid to do a blog on game trailers, cool, whatever. But if he's hiring people who are going to dump all over these games just because this guy made it, or something like that, I think maybe he needs to have his position reevaluated by the people above him, or at the very least, they need to sit him down and go, look, you cannot do this in official capacities anymore. You have to do this on your own time. Because this was probably the middle of a day during the week when he was sitting at his office just trolling Phil.
The initial comment came from their weekly podcast. He was on their Invisible Wall.
So he was doing it
and that's when
in an
lit
official capacity.
Into everybody.
Yeah.
I was like, woo.
So yeah, I think maybe he needs to either. I don't know if this was like a directed thing, like if he was going after Fish for whatever reason. So, so I only listen to like 2 podcasts a week because I listen to them at work and I listen to them in like 20-minute chunks. So.
Okay, so I have a new thing I have to do at the end of every show. And that new thing is if you like the video, click like. If you like the video and you want to see more of the video, click subscribe. And if you think your friends will like it, click share.
Yes.
And please come back and see us. And we're going to have more videos like this. And we'll have more videos eventually where we're playing games and talking about old games. So
yes.
Our sign-off, as always, is...
Don't forget to spay and neuter your Pokemon.
Thank you, Dave.
And
You guys
we'll
have a good
see you
week.
next week.